very excited to talk to both these gentlemen today. We have a great show. Season 2, we are beginning episode 1, and I am looking forward to talking about so many things. And this year has already been ups, downs, and we have kind of a dead month right now when it comes to April. So it's very interesting to see what's on the horizon as well as what is opening. So first and foremost, let us introduce the people who are here. Scott Menzel, thank you for being here today. We Live Entertainment, of course, the Hollywood Critics Association as well. I want to thank you for being here. And more importantly, I guess, how did you start to become a critic yourself? What brought you to this day?
Oh, that's a great question. So I've always loved movies since I was like 5 years old. And I always knew that I wanted to do something in the film world. I originally, I think like a lot of people, wanted to go into the behind the scenes type stuff. I wanted to go into either writing and directing. I followed the path. I went to film school. I went to Chapman University. And when I was at Chapman University, I took a film criticism class. And when I took that class, I realized that I was enjoying critiquing movies more than I was making movies in my other classes. So I switched paths and went over there, and I started to learn more and more about the art of film criticism and learning all about film history. And long story short, I started doing freelance work. I used to write for IMDb, also used to freelance for Joe Blow, no paid gigs at all, just kind of would go to early screenings and leak my reviews to them. And then I just decided to do my own thing. I did MovieManMenzel.com first. After a while, I realized that I couldn't expand the site by just having me. So I decided to switch that up and do We Live Film. And then I realized that We Live Film was too limiting, because what happens if I wanted to cover TV shows or Broadway or something else? And I decided to do We Live Entertainment. It's been going strong for about 8 years now, and I'm very happy with it.
Fantastic. And yeah, that's the thing. Everyone thinks you get into criticism and you get a paid gig where you're doing a newspaper and a TV show and a radio show and you're making all this money. That's not the way it works. Much like actors who are like looking for the next big step up, so are critics. We're looking just for a way to get our opinions out there. But at the very least, we love what we do and we love what we talk about. So that's something you can trust in us. Moving over to Joel. Joel, tell us a little bit about what brought you here. Of course, the movie mensch. What was the road least traveled and the road that you chose, I guess, at the same time?
Well, I've always been obsessed with film, television, entertainment from an early age. My mother, really big influence on me. I've been watching and trying to predict the Oscars since I was like 9 years old. But a funny thing happened. We were living in San Diego, my wife and I, and we left in 2000. We left a little movie called Almost Famous. My wife looked at me and she said, the kid in that movie reminds me of you. So we got home and I actually showed her a picture of me in a journalism hat holding a Rolling Stone. And she's like, well, why did you never follow that dream? And I said, I didn't really think it was something that was possible. So she said, well, write a review and see what happens. I wrote a review of Almost Famous. It takes place in San Diego, at least part of it. There was a little throwaway newspaper company at the end of our street that, was mostly ads, but they had a lot of stuff. And I brought my review down there. And not only did they publish it, but they hired me to do movie criticism. So I dove into that and took some classes in criticism and journalism to kind of hone those skills. And, this led to that and this led to that. Next thing you know, I was starting the She Knows Entertainment channel and blew that up to about 3-4 million hits a month, traveled the world, interviewed Anne Hathaway on the beach in Rio, and had a couple of health issues and got knocked down, decided to start my own site, the Movie Mensch. And I love everything about it and I can't stop doing it. And it's in your blood. And I know Scott would probably agree is that, looking back, it's almost like there was never any other option.
100%. And you know what, when you really love what you do and you look forward to things and you look forward to finding ways to get people interested. It's like finding a new recipe for the same dish, because some of the same movies we get over and over again. But if we can kind of give that different flavor and that different taste to something that you weren't expecting, I mean, that's what makes the money you spend or the time you go to a theater worthwhile. So I thank you very much, Joe, for being here. First, we are going to move. We're going to move into the news. We're going to talk a little bit about, really quickly, some things in the news. So the first thing I'm going to do is talk about DC Fandome. Of course, they just announced is going to be October 16th, 2021. The first drew 22 million people, and it's 22 countries over 24 hours. I mean, what do you guys think about these new virtual conventions, in a way of, live format where you have to be part of it, and part of it as well as, festivals we deal with now too. So let's start with Joel. What's your thought on DC Fandome coming back again and saying, you know what, we're just going to go digital, and that's the best way for us to deliver. Of course, the last time they did Wonder Woman 1984, they did Snyderverse, they did the Batman, so there was a lot of information to kind of save up.
Yeah, I think the demand is there. I think the audience is very passionate. I think we've seen that, and sometimes maybe that passion can get into arenas that maybe it shouldn't. But I think overall, most of your diehard fans of these films are generally excited, and they have a fire to be fanned, and that's what these conventions do. And it's a way for DC and others like them to kind of control the narrative, like Disney does with D23. I mean, they've been doing that for years. It's just been getting bigger and bigger. And I think when you can control the narrative, you can control what people will see, what people are talking about, and in the overall spectrum of the entertainment world, you become topic A for several days. And I think that's the ultimate goal. And I think it's priceless. I think it's absolutely priceless. And it took a pandemic for people to realize that we can go online and gather as groups of people who with a shared interest. And I think we're just scratching the surface of what these niche things are gonna be doing in the future.
I mean, and it proves in our future right now, because we no longer have just cable. We have all these channels and services we sign up for. So why would we just have, I guess, Comic-Con when we could have each one of our specific events where we want to go to? But these companies also have a very large library to go back into as well. Actually, I want to move on to another topic really quickly, and I'm going to go to Scott for this one. They're already talking. There's some rumblings. People were wondering Godzilla versus Kong. How do you go bigger than that? How do you go different? And there's some rumblings of Son of Kong. Any thoughts on that? If that is just a rumbling, I don't want to go into an argument if it's good or bad, just some thoughts on what you think the Monsterverse deserves, and if that is it.
I think they should stop right now. I mean, they got lucky with this one. I think also a lot of the success of this film stems from the fact that we didn't have a lot of movies like it for almost a year. But when you look at the box office and the history of the last couple Godzilla and Kong movies, they weren't really doing all that great. So I think continuing this is a little bit of a risk. Especially since it seems like they had free range. Like the filmmakers for these movies have had free range to do what they wanted to do. And audiences have not been responding all that positively towards them until this one. And I think this one, again, with all the mopey, depressing films that were out for most of 2020, seeing this was like a breath of fresh air. It was a change of pace. And I think that helped elevate the box office and also the interest for this type of movie.
Well, I think that's something that was definitely proven with the fact that we had a huge ape and a huge lizard fighting each other, and everyone was just happy to watch it on their couches. Although I did see it in theaters myself, so the sound did make a little bit of a difference, I feel, when it came to that. The last thing I do want to bring up, in fact, is they just started production on The Meg 2, so why not have a gigantic shark as well? So 75-foot shark, Jason Statham again. Do either of you have any thoughts on this? And the first one, which very much surprised me, because I forgot this fact, the first one made $500 million. $530 million, which is surprising a lot of people out there, I'm sure. But what's the thought on The Meg 2 coming out now? Is it just something that's easy to kind of put in the basket and let's get it out and kind of give fans the the same kind of feel maybe as Godzilla versus Kong? So do either of you have any thoughts by chance?
Well, I can't say I'm surprised when you're talking about the money. I mean, I think the money drives the creative decision in a situation like this. And I think when you're making that kind of money on that kind of film, and you have Jason Statham, who is no problem attaching himself to franchises, Transporter much, he he says, sure. I think I even read a quote this week. He's like, yeah, sure. I'll punch a shark in the nose again. Sign me up. So if he's game, I'm sure there'll be some audiences that are game. Is it necessary? Probably not. But, it's the business model. That's kind of the way things are now.
I'll go with that. And you're talking to somebody who covered 3 of the Transporter junkets and press days and red carpets as well. So just so you know, finding ways to ask different questions about the same exact story character was a little hard, especially since I also covered The Mechanic as well, which of course was way different than the Transporter series. So there, of course, is a lot to that too. So moving from there, let us talk about our main topics. Of course, You're Wrong, Here's Why is us about having opposing thoughts, opposing feelings. And I think the number one that we're going to start with today is this. Is Sebastian Stan underrated or overrated? This actor who has been, of course, Bucky. A lot of people are. Do I spell Sebastian right? Is that I-O-N?
You spelled it wrong. Yeah,
I spelled it wrong. I'm going to fix that right now because I can take a thought off out of somebody, but I cannot give them the wrong spelling. That's just wrong. That's like not giving the right credit to somebody. How about that? All right, we're back in it. Let's start with that, and we're gonna go to our critics here, and they have opposing feelings on this. Of course, we have Joel, who thinks Sebastian Stan is underrated, and we have Scott, who thinks he is overrated. And just so you know, when they fill out these questionnaires, I have a blank space that says overrated or underrated. So it's really about them having a specific feeling to fill in that space. This wasn't a check mark. This wasn't something else that came out there. Trust me, if I would, it would be all, there's a lot of people questioning Kristen Stewart on a regular basis. And that's probably one where I need a lot of critics to go through as well. This was one that definitely stood out to me, and that's why I wanted to match you up for a couple of these. So let's start with Joel. Joel, why is Sebastian Stan underrated?
Well, for 2 reasons. First of all, I don't believe he's been given much of a chance to do anything other than play Bucky or the Winter Soldier for a very long time now. And I think that he is a solid actor. I thought he was great as Jeff in I, Tonya. He was recently in the movie Monday. And I think the only thing that made that movie really watchable was his charisma and the persona that he put forth. He was a joy. I wanted to go on the ride with him. I think with the right movie, I think people are going to really see that this guy can do something special. I just think he hasn't been given the chance. That Marvel contract is pretty strict. You do what they say. Now that we're probably going to have a second season of Winter Soldier on Disney Plus, he's going to be busy with that yet again. But I think, when we start to get away from him being Bucky, I think you're going to realize that we brought up Kristen Stewart. I think Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson are perfect examples. You get them away from a franchise that they were supposedly known as solely being able to do, and look what they've done. They've done some incredible work, the both of them, and they've become some of my favorite actors. And I think Sebastian Stan is going to be one of those people as he gets further away from being Bucky.
All right, so a little sleeper in there, and to get away from the Marvel, to get away from the arm. I will say I did see Monday as well, and I was surprised how much I enjoyed that film more than I thought I would as well. So Monday is definitely something to throw in there. But I also do see the other side too. So Scott, tell us why Sebastian Stan is overrated, metal arm or no?
Personally, Bucky is probably my least favorite character in the MCU. I don't like the bromance that was created between him and Captain America. But in terms of Sebastian Stan as an actor, this picture sums it up. He literally has that face the entire time. Whenever I watch him, all I see him doing is blank stares, or he looks mopey, or he's frowning. That's literally how Sebastian Stan acts. And it's weird because, to Joel's point, like, you kind of think, like, is it because of the Marvel Cinematic Universe where he's kind of shoehorned into this character of Bucky? I say no, because I remember seeing him in a movie like Endings Beginnings or something like Destroyer, and I felt like it's the same type of character. I hate normally ragging on an actor, but like, the problem for me is just that I feel like he's very much a typecast actor, and he doesn't really go above and beyond to try to shine in any performance. He just feels like, to use an old expression, a wet dish rag. Every time I see him, he just sort of like just stares there blankly, and it's just so monotone in his delivery and his performance. It's just all the same, all the same.
Oh, wow. Well, you know what, though? You feel what you feel. And the problem was, I was bringing up images, and they all had the Sebastian Stan face that was just settled there as well. Mm-hmm. So now you're making me think about it as well. And I'm trying to think back. I mean, We Live in a Castle was another one he did, right? And there was a couple others that were really interesting, but I can't think of a time when he stood out outside of being the Winter Soldier. And really, my favorite thing about Sebastian Stan is in the Winter Soldier. I mean, when he had the mask on and he was the eyes. The eyes did it for me more than the rest of it altogether. So I think I definitely have an issue somewhere in there too. So I'm going to give one last thing, Joel. Is there any other thoughts before we kind of close out this topic in favor of Sebastian Stan? I know there's a lot of women out there who just like the way he looks, and he's cute, and he's got like his fun little, grim kind of feel to him. But I'm trying to think of other movie instances that really show him as a definitive, actor or leading man, not just the second guy with the metal arm.
I think Tonya, is a good example of where he stretched a bit. But it's funny. I mean, I really loved the television series, and I feel like I might be making Scott's point here. But I read a think piece the other day that I thought really nailed it. That it almost said, did that show even need the Winter Soldier? Like, why was he there? I mean, if you look back over those episodes, and you realize his role in the narrative, he kind of really didn't need to be there. I'm not helping my cause by saying that, but it made me think, it made me pause. But I have hope that I think that he can be like a Dominic Cooper or something, or somebody who can fill that role in a movie and be that guy.
I don't know. You know what? Now that I think about Winter Soldier 2, I do question it as well. Don't get me wrong. A lot of it was heavy-handed, not so much in its message as just a Marvel vehicle. It was a heavy-handed, we need to We need to find some way to make money off of every one of these pieces. We need toys. We need this. We need to fill a slot in between WandaVision and this as well. And, it's been in the mix for a long time, too. So this is probably something someone in the boardroom said, those two, let's go. You guys get on the bus. We're going here to shoot. So there's definitely something in there for sure. Whether I'm even going to be excited about the next Captain America or the next even Falcon and Winter Soldier is really going to depend on the story. And I gave them the first season to build it, but I'm definitely going to have to question going beyond this point. So to kind of go with my thoughts and my feelings on this, I feel like both of you made good points, but at the end of the day, I am kind of leaning towards just Scott. I think Scott, you did kind of sold me on it a little bit. So I think that's where I am right now. He's not a bad actor. He just has something that proved himself to be something where he glows, he shines. Even in I, Tonya, he's not the star in any way or shape or form. I don't think about him in that. I think of who's going to play Galooly, right? That's who I think of. That's who I think of constantly when I think of secondary after Tonya and her mom is Galooly's, whoever played Galooly. I can't remember his name right now, but yeah. So that's kind of my. Yes.
You're talking about Paul Walter Hauser? Yeah.
Yes, fantastic. So that's my thing. He didn't shine in that regard either. So I'm hoping he does find a vehicle, but as of right now, he is not something that leads me beyond that. Although I will say for secondary VOD stuff like IFC and stuff like that, he's good to fill in. I think he can deliver a story as well. So we'll see.
Derek, if I can add one thing real quick. It's almost impossible to compare the two, WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what I'll leave you with to prove this point. When you watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier versus when you're watching WandaVision, you saw so many articles come out about WandaVision where you're like, oh my God, Elizabeth Olsen, this is such a really deep performance dealing with depression and like different behavioral patterns and things like that. Like you really saw her act, right? And everyone like kind of was like, she deserves an Emmy for this performance. When you watch Sebastian Stan and to a certain extent Anthony Mackie and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, their characters are very much like brooding the entire time. There's not a whole lot of depth. They don't have that roundness to them as the characters did in WandaVision. Therefore, again, making me think like Sebastian Stan, like just one note. He knows how to play that character and he's played it to death.
I will go with you on that because I can say that it feels like Falcon and the Winter Soldier was written and directed by somebody in the stunts department, because that's really what it felt like more than anything else too. I mean, when you look at some of the stories we've had, I've been rewatching. Whenever I go to Disney Plus, I find myself jumping into another Marvel movie or something along those nature. So when I start to see some of the good stories that came out of there, and then I see this, I feel like I know what they were trying to do with it, and they're intense, and somewhere there's a bullet point checklist they need to kind of click off on the things they wanted to accomplish, which maybe it did in some regards, but it didn't give me that feeling of that it was something that was going to lead my choice, and I'm going to be waiting week to week for it. I wasn't looking at Friday 12:01, being excited to see it. I was actually hoping they had more in-depth writing to the power broker and all that stuff, so that way I would be more excited by the fact that they were going deeper than I thought they were going to. So that was another thing as well. I was hoping that, but I hoped for WandaVision as well. Luckily, though, WandaVision was enough on its own to deliver. Falcon, not as much. But as to the point I said before, I am leaning towards Scott on this one. So sorry, Joel. We are going to hope and pray that someone gives Sebastian the spotlight he deserves to kind of shine in a different role. But until then, we are just going to be happy that he shows up for some things, and he's a nice guy. I've interviewed him, but I would love to see him shine in something, maybe a period piece where he's not wearing a metal arm or, destroying stuff, and something along those lines. So we'll see what happens there. So moving on from that, we've given it to Scott on that one, but this is the bigger topic, and this is something that some people have asked, and of course it was a big deal when it rolled out. And the question on this one is, Should the Snyderverse continue moving forward? Is this something that we want to see? Of course, a lot of people out there, huge DC fans, which I've always found funny is DC fans don't like always want to put down Marvel, and Marvel people are kind of happy to have both. Am I right in saying that? It's what I found more than not. It's like DC fans are like, no, Snyder knows what he's doing, and you just don't get what he's doing with Superman or the Batman, and they're just so like hardcore into it. But I could be wrong. Maybe it's just the circle of friends that I have in that regard. But to go to this point, we're looking at Warner Brothers going forward with Zack Snyder's vision. Should it have happened? They said, of course, it's not going to, but who knows what happens in this world. Maybe there's going to be some surprise numbers at the end that make it worthwhile. To go to this point, Scott is on the positive side of this one. He thinks the Snyderverse should continue. We should see more of everything he has to offer, his plan, and then kind of interweave the Aquamans and the Flashes and everything back more into what his vision was, and to kind of continue into maybe more Justice Leagues to come. And then Joel is on the other side thinking that we should end it here. The mother box, just take the battery out, leave it in the corner, let dust essentially, pile up on top of it. So for this one, we are going to start with Scott. Scott, can you tell us why we should continue with the Snyderverse?
So I think by having Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is just so silly that we have to call this movie Zack Snyder's Justice League, because it should have been that way in 2017, but whatever. We got to see what he wanted to do, and people, regardless of the ratings on HBO Max, the overall reception to this film was very positive, both from an audience standpoint as well as a critical standpoint. It also marks the first time since Man of Steel where he was able to flesh out a film the way that he intended to. Because with Batman v Superman, we did not get to see his full vision until he got to put it out on Blu-ray. And by that time, the damage was already done. So I personally think, from watching Justice League, watching the story kind of come together and seeing the reactions from people who were poo-pooing on the Joss Whedon version of Justice League and saying how bad it was, to seeing them kind of saying like, wow, why didn't they let him do this in the first place? Showing that a director has a vision, and there's a big lesson to be learned about this, is that you hire a director to do a job, and you should let them do your job. You're not going to win everyone over by letting them do the job that they're going to do. But at the end of the day, you're going to get a product that represents that filmmaker. And to see the positive vibes and the positive reactions from this version of Justice League, the way that it was originally intended, showcases that there are positive things to say about it, and that people have reacted to it. It's interesting. It comes out on a streaming service. It doesn't go theatrical at all. Who knows what would have happened if it actually had a Godzilla versus Kong type release, where it was able to go into theaters as well as HBO Max the same day. Would the conversation be different? But the last thing I'll also add to this is to add to your point earlier. DC fans are so used to having filmmakers come in and have the Richard Donner Superman movies, and those movies were very unique to their own. And then you have the Nolan Batman movies and the Tim Burton Batman movies. All of them have a very unique, distinct feel to them. Marvel fans don't really have that. They have what Kevin Feige says, and basically they follow this formula. The DC universe, in my opinion, is more refreshing because of the fact that it doesn't have that formula. And I think if anyone will make that formula different, it's Zack Snyder, because his tones of his movies are nothing like Marvel movies are. And that's what makes them, to me, stand out. They're darker, they're more grounded in the real world, and they just have a totally different look, feel, and tone to them. therefore making them stand out from the other universe, which I think in the recent years, they've been trying so hard to mimic Marvel that they just kind of seem like they're playing catch up or copycats. With Zack, they were trying to do something different.
Now I understand that, and I do agree because I feel that their whole feel to do the catch up was their biggest fault to begin with, trying to recreate a universe in 2 years or 3 years that Marvel already had 6 or 7 down, and trying to catch up, and that was a big problem altogether. I will say though, on Marvel's defense, that James Gunn is the light that I feel that Snyder is on the DC side. He has his own vision, he has his own feeling, and he created something out of the blue and gave us Guardians of the Galaxy, which was not in 99% of the lexicon of moviegoers out there. So to create something like that and make it into regular everyday is something that makes me so happy. It makes me very excited for Suicide Squad. So moving from there to the let's stop this Snyder train. Let's talk to Joel, and I want to ask you, what is it you feel that maybe it's accomplished already, or maybe it didn't accomplish, and that's why we need to kind of just back off on it?
I think the reason why the Snyderverse is finished is pure, essentially, logistics. I feel like that the train has left the station. We've got Matt Reeves doing a Batman movie with Robert Pattinson. We have Henry Cavill begging to do a sequel to Man of Steel, and I don't know if you guys saw this, but in the week or the days after Zack Snyder's Justice League was released, and I love that 4-hour cut. I've actually seen it twice now. I think it's fantastic. They released about a 4.5-minute trailer of Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and the Snyder Cut of Justice League. And it was almost like they were telling us this is the trilogy, and now it's over. So I mean, studios and filmmakers change their mind all the time. They can bring back somebody to life who was dead, and just we'll take their word for it. So I don't doubt that it couldn't happen. I just, given the elements that have happened since Justice League was released on HBO Max, I don't see how it continues logistically. And I think also there is a feeling that Zack Snyder has got to feel justified. He's got to feel redeemed, that there was such a not just a popular response, but an emotional response. People responded emotively to Justice League like they hadn't any of the other previous movies. And I think he's got Army of the Dead coming out, and I think that movie is gonna hit. I think it's gonna hit. I mean, what an idea! A casino heist during a zombie apocalypse. Take my money. And Zack Snyder's behind the camera. Come on. And I think when that hits, and that I'm pretty sure is going to be successful. I think he's going to want to do something else. I think he's going to want to walk away from this universe that he's helped create because he's ended it in a proper way. And I think it's not that I don't want to see more from Zack Snyder in this room. I just think that the way he's done it, the way he's wrapped it up, and the way the studio has handled it, it's over.
I see that. And more importantly, you're right about the fact that the chess pieces are already all over the board. I mean, that's just the way it is. We've got the Batman, we've got the Flash, which could connect in some way. I mean, that's something that this Justice League did give us, was that more in-depth picture of the Flash as he met Iris and things like that too. That's fantastic. I'm looking forward to how that kind of comes to play. Then again, I was questioning whether it was going to happen at all with all that news about Ezra too. So I'm happy to see that is now moving forward as well. But then we have the Batman. And then James Wan's going to go off and do something else with Aquaman for the second one. Mm-hmm. We've already seen where they're going with the Wonder Woman 1984, which I wasn't a huge fan of, but it did move the story forward, the needle forward a little bit, I guess. So as much as I do want to see more of it, I just don't know what's going to happen or what they can add to it to make it, which is sad because there's a lot of unanswered questions. And of course, we had that big, huge end credit with the Joker and, you know, Batman and the leavings protect Lois Lane, you know. So there's a lot of that stuff out there, which does make me sad because that's something I do want to know. But it's almost like he kind of answered what happened with that at the same time too. So with one last one, Scott, I'm going to give it to you. Just give me a last thought on Snyderverse, and while maybe the pieces are out on the board, why you think that it's still viable and still an option Warner Brothers should take.
I mean, personally, we have the idea of the multiverse, and that's something that DC actually has been exploring, right? And that talking about DC fandom, that was a topic of discussion this past year. In that was that there was going to be a lot of crossovers, and we saw it on The Flash on the TV show, where that version of the Flash met Ezra. And I think when you look at Justice League and Zack Snyder's vision of it, I think that there's still pieces that are still there, and he's introduced it almost as a teaser at the end of this movie with the Martian Manhunter and the Joker. And they have come out and already said with the new Flash movie that they're going to bring back Michael Keaton and all these different characters. And you know, and on the Marvel side, just to throw that out there, you know, that's what they're doing in the Spider-Man universe for the next movie. So to me, there's a place for Snyder's vision, and Snyder's vision, maybe it's not theatrical because of the bad blood that's between him and the theatrical side, but maybe it is on the HBO side. And maybe it just has a tighter budget and works more as a mini series instead of an actual movie. I think there's a lot of things to be explored here because there's clearly an audience for it. And there's a lot of controversy about the numbers because we don't really know the real numbers with anything on streaming. And since they had such a bad taste in their mouth, not only with Zack Snyder, but also with the whole Ray Fisher incident, there's a lot of bad blood here. And they have kind of come out and said it in one of those articles, we just wanted to put this to bed. We just wanted to put this to rest. But the fan base is so loyal. And the fact that they're using the movie to justify other important causes like suicide prevention, I just say never. Because I mean, we saw that with this movie, right? This is literally a once in a lifetime type opportunity where you don't see it happen all that often. And for someone to lose a family member, come back and actually finish the product because of an outpouring of fan support and billboards in Times Square and all this stuff, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, no, I see that too, and there's been a lot of things going on in that world, which have definitely thrown everything, you know, into disarray and question as well. And truth be told, there's a lot of things that I wasn't like. I did love the 4-hour cut. I mean, how could you not? It's 4 hours of a comic book movie that gives you everything you want. Although I will say, I really wish they would have made this guy tougher or done something more with him. He was not on the level of Thanos. I'm just going to put it out there in that same thought. Thanos was deeper. He had a character behind him. He had a lot more. And I know they were just kind of patching some of his vision in there with some of the money they had, but he just wasn't. He wasn't the villain that I wanted him to be. If you've read the comics or even watches some of the animated series, I mean, Darkseid is just a power unto himself with War World and things like that, which we didn't get into either. So there's a lot of things like that I wish they would have got into, but I will take what he gave us and what we had at the end. My final thoughts are the fact that as much as I would like to see the rest of us, I just don't see it happening. As much as I would like to see it move forward, I feel like he is already kind of moving on with this world too. You hear about The Rock and his Black Adam wanting Superman to be part of the world and how that's going to work. Probably because he'd rather be across from Henry Cavill than Zachary Levi in Shazam as his opposite, which makes sense. But at the same time, they're going to make do with what they can, and we're going to see what they do. The one thing that DC does have that I've always given them love for is their TV is on point. It's always been great the way they connect everything, as you mentioned. I'm very happy with that. And then more importantly, the DC universe on TV feeds the fans correctly, more than any other service out there outside of maybe what Marvel Daredevil did with Netflix. Those were the kind of things that kind of fed directly into the fans' hearts, and I feel like DC tries to do that. Whether you're a part of the division of Snyder or not, I feel like you understand that it's definitely part of the world, and they're trying to keep it close together. But be that as it may, as much as I want the Snyderverse to continue, I have to just say that it's probably not going to, and I'm going to give it to Joel for this one. It's just not going to go anywhere, and I think it's just going to be over, which is sad. As I mentioned, I'd like to see Batman and the Joker be next to each other and fighting, or finding some way for this next world or universe to kind of make more sense, more dark side, more different things like that. And there's so many more huge villains out there. And talking about your Batman v Superman, of course, Lex Luthor, Eisenberg got just the biggest shaft. His character was just the lightest, just worthless villain at the end. His Lex Luthor got nothing compared to the screen time the previous Lex Luthors have had. So that was something that I felt kind of just went by the wayside as well. The one thing that will always catch me and that I will love Snyder for is that Man of Steel moment when Kevin Costner stops him, that father-son moment. That's more like, if I had a crying reel, that would be in my crying reel as an actor, to watch Kevin Costner say, "No, stop, the world needs you." I'm gonna cry everywhere. So that was definitely something that's in my mind. But yeah, Joel, for this one I'm gonna go to, because just as much as I want to, the Snyderverse I feel is gonna be over when it comes to DC. I don't think they're gonna bring him back in again. I actually thought they were going to use James Gunn and try to recreate something, but Marvel, I think, figured out they need to snap him back up as quickly as possible and say, you know what? Yeah, you go do your Suicide Squad with the neighbor kids, but you come back home for dinner. You remember that. And I think that's really what's happening. So we'll see what happens beyond that. But Suicide Squad is something I'm looking forward to. And then Army of the Dead as well is going to be something that is going to blow me away. So I'm so excited for that. More importantly, I'm hoping Batista gets something fun out of him, because unfortunately, I watched Endgame again recently, and Drax was just worthless at the end. I mean, for a guy who's supposed to kill Thanos in the comics and had that beginnings of it when they started this whole thing, to just be a guy who jumps on people's backs and stabs them like a little puppet or something, that's all they gave him. And so I was kind of beside myself, but it was an Iron Man reality, and I think I went into it knowing that, so it will be in my heart as well. So with that, the tally is 1-1. Scott, right now you had Sebastian Stan as overrated at this point. Right now, we will still give him the benefit of the doubt in the future. Perhaps we'll see. Maybe there's more than one face to the Stan. And then for Joel, Snyderverse is essentially over. As much as we wanted to, unless there's going to be Warner Brothers finds there's more money out there, or HBO Max is just the huge moneymaker they hope it's going to be, which some of the numbers say it is doing that. Maybe they will bring it back into that world, but it is not a Vegas bet I would take at this time. So that's where I am right now on both of those. As I close out, you're wrong, here's why. I always like to ask the guests, what are you watching right now? What is it that people need to tune into? So Scott, what are you watching right now?
Well, you should check out Mitchell's and the Machines. That's 100% what you should be checking out if you're looking for a film. Highly recommended. I do not want to see this movie go the way of Over the Moon, where no one talked about it. This movie is amazing in every single way. It's a great love letter to pop culture, but also to animation, very unique animation style. A TV show that I've gone into over the pandemic that I cannot recommend enough is a show on NBC, which you can watch on Peacock, and that is New Amsterdam. I am someone who traditionally does not like TV shows based around hospitals or doctors, but this one really works for me. And the reason why is because it has a great cast and great characters. The characters in this hospital is what makes this show worthwhile. The drama in a typical hospital or medical show is there, but the personal stories of these characters is what elevates this show to stand out and make it different. So highly recommend New Amsterdam if you're looking for a TV show to watch. And if you're looking for a movie, The Mitchells and the Machines, or versus the Machines.
I can't agree more on that one. I loved it. To me, it's like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs or Arthur Christmas, both of which I absolutely loved. And it was just something different and fun. And I can't say enough about it. So, Joel, we're going to you. What are you watching right now that people should check into?
Great minds think alike. I have written right here, The Mitchells versus the Machines. I absolutely love that. There's an element that I was drawn to that is, it's a great father-daughter bonding experience and what they went through. I can't wait to sit down and watch it with my daughter. I am also, in terms of television programming, I jumped on the Succession bandwagon and on HBO, and that is just unreal. That is so powerful. I can see why people are going crazy. And I just finished Ted Lasso, which may be one of the most pleasantly, surprisingly awesome television shows I've ever seen in my life.
Second, Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso is amazing.
For sure, 100%. And it's for anyone out there who loves Scrubs too, the heart and the comedy of Scrubs. I talked to Bill Lawrence a couple times about that as well, and it's just a great show too. So there are some definite things out there. The only problem with it is, of course, it's on Apple TV Plus, which if you didn't buy a new iPhone, you might not have a free year. So if you're paying for it, good on you. Watch Mythic Quest and a couple other things on there as well. But outside of that, we'll see what happens. But yes, Ted Lasso and Mitchells and the Machines. As for me, I've been I recently went to the theater to go watch Demon Slayer Mugen Train. So anyone out there, that's a huge animation movie right now if you're into anime. Beyond that, just check out some new fun stuff coming out. I know that Mosquito Coast is coming on Apple TV Plus, and that's Justin Theroux, which is great. And Trying is coming out too, so we'll have to see that. And if you are a murder buff, kind of like I am, and a lot of us are out there have like that murder buff kind of vibe, the Sons of Sam about Son of Sam documentary is coming to Netflix, and that'll be next week, so check that out as well. Lastly, guys, where can everyone find you and follow you and make sure to like you and everything you do? So let's start with Joel on this one.
I'm at themoviemensch.com and on Twitter at Joel_D_Amos and also on Facebook.
Fantastic. And Scott, where can they find you and your work?
You can find me over at WeLiveEntertainment.com and on all social media platforms at Scott D. Menzel.
Fantastic. Well, I think we answered some questions, and more importantly, we had some fun. A lot more topics to come this year, and as we ramp up with more content, which it makes me kind of icky to say when I call it content. Let's just call it movies and TVs and just entertainment as a whole. And we'll have a lot more things to talk about. So I want to thank you both for being guests today. And I hope everyone in your worlds is happy and healthy. More importantly, I hope we all return to the theaters or at least enjoy everything from our couches. So thank you once again for joining me. And this has been the first episode of season 2. You're wrong. Here's why.